light of God. And now you're in absolute darkness. And it is blacker than any black that could ever exist here on earth. Even the furthest reaches of the universe don't touch how black it is when you're completely separated from God. However, you do see. You see everything, and you have to see. I knew that I didn't have eyeballs. All I had were empty sockets. You just know these things. And so I couldn't close my eyes. I had to watch everything. I didn't have ears like these, just holes in the side of my head. So I had to hear everything. You have to experience everything, and you experience it. It's not an exaggeration. It's millions and millions of times in magnitudes more clear, distinct, and felt and experienced than anything that we could in the physical. And I see these rocks, and then again, the flames going from my right down to my left. So I look down to my left, and I could just see that this tunnel, this chamber just goes on and on as far as I can see. And then I start to look to my right to kind of see where the flames are coming from. And that's when I saw a man also seated next to me. He's just far enough away that I couldn't touch him. He couldn't touch me. I knew I couldn't talk to him, and he couldn't talk to me. But what's interesting is as soon as I saw him, I knew everything about him instantly. Everything. Just that quick. And just the need to know is I knew his name was James. I knew he died at the age of 55 from a heart attack. And I also knew that he did not value his body. He did not value his life. And he especially did not value God. He wanted nothing to do with God. And if there was a God, he hated his guts. That's how he lived his life. And this man was obese. And I found it shocking that even in hell, he was obese. And on his stomach, you know, and he's consumed in the flames too, obviously. On his stomach, these bubbles would begin to form, like boiling bubbles from the heat. And then they would pop, and the smoke and stench would roll up his body right into his nostrils and go down into him. And he just had to face, he was just constant. It was just, it's ever before you. The way you live here on earth is ever before you and always against you in hell. And he looked up, again, he had nothing but black sockets too. He looked up towards heaven as if pleading. But even I knew it was a waste of time. It was too late for him. And I could feel that in him. It's too late. And his head went down, and he began bobbing his head and sobbing. But there are no tears in hell. But he just sobbed. And as far as I know, he wasn't aware of my presence. He never acknowledged my presence. He never said a word. But I was forced to see his torment for my own torment. I don't want to forget to mention too that looking at my body too, just the whole of me, it was just this skinny, frail corpse. That's all it looked like. I always forget the guy's name, that Iceman that they found on some iceberg, thousands of years old, well preserved, Uzi or Orzi the Iceman, they called him. I remember watching a documentary, and they were showing the corpse, that they had found, and I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, that's exactly what I look like. That's what I look like. If you can think of that, Julie, and put a picture of it if you'd like, because I know that'll shock people too, to see that. No joke, that is exactly what I look like. Ozzy the Iceman, whatever. And on my body, these worms, they were about 6 to maybe 8 inches long. They're all kind of different size, but they were kind of a cloudy white looking number, and they clung to my arms and on all over my body too. And they were absolutely sickening. It wasn't like a leech, because they look more like worms, but they would stick to your body and just sear you. And they would kind of crawl like an inchworm would. They'd kind of come up and just crawl. And the smell that came from them was by far the worst. By far the worst of any of the smells. And then they and the fire just went right through them. It consumed me and ate me alive, but it went right through these worms. And then they would begin burrowing into my arms and into my body and just eating their way through me. And I mean, just when you think these flames can't be bad enough, Now you have these worms violating you like that, crawling wherever they want to, in and through you, just eating their way. It's like having a white hot nail slowly pulled through your veins. It was just that horrible. I'm just okay. So now I'm desperate for something else, something else, something else, something else. But the more I look, the worse things were getting. But you just can't help yourself. You're that desperate. And I remember thinking, like, what is this place? Where is everybody? I feel so alone. I just feel alone. Even, yeah, a guy sitting next to me, but you're alone. You've never felt so alone like I did in that moment. And as soon as I thought that, I began hearing the screams of millions and millions and millions of people. And oh, my heart, hearing them scream and wail in torment. I mean, we see these little clips, online, and they just don't even touch it. Nothing that you've ever seen, no video. I wish I could, and hope prayerfully maybe someday I can make something that might even come close to what I saw. We're so desensitized by the stuff Hollywood's putting out anymore, the horror and the films. I don't watch that obviously anymore, but even the point, before I repented of watching that, I was so desensitized. But in hell, it is so real, and you're shocked at just hearing these people scream. It made me sick to my stomach. All of that was the first level of torments.
So there's other levels. What else did you see then?
Yeah. So from there, I couldn't handle the screaming. I just couldn't handle it. And so out of desperation, I got to get something. I can't listen. I can't hear that. I can't handle that because it's real. This is real. These people are really screaming like me. And so I'm just desperately searching for something, anything. And then suddenly in front of me, where the rock is, I began seeing these black shadows darting just very quickly. I could see them darting in and out of the flames. I could see them going in and out and through the rock as they pleased. But it's so frustrating trying to describe evil.
Yeah.
They were about 3 to 4 feet tall and pure black. A black that I never knew could possibly exist. The only possible way I could even try to describe them was that if a black hole in our universe could take on bipedal form, it was that powerful of an evil. And it was so thick. I knew it for a fact. I could go like this and just pinch the evil in between my fingers. Again, if something's my opinion, I'll just state it as such, and I'm always open. But after what I experienced, I'm personally convinced that what we experience here on Earth is the aftermath of obliging evil that comes from the enemy, being led to commit murders and genocides and all these things that are just horrible. But it's not the essence of evil itself. We're experiencing what happens when someone obliges it. What I saw in these things, I was staring at, and I was in the presence of the absolute source of pure evil, unimaginable. It was so bad. It was so terrifying. Everything else was terrifying, but now I'm experiencing terror on a whole new level. And it was so bad that I completely froze. The fact that our physical brain can only handle so much is one thing. And then you get into the supernatural realm, and it's just so far beyond this physical realm. I'm in the spirit realm, and the evil coming from these things was so bad, even my spirit body couldn't handle it. That's how bad it was. My spirit body could not handle this evil, and I became stiff as a board, which meant I stopped screaming. And that was very bad. The instant I stopped screaming, 3 of them ran up to me so fast. And again, I'm seated, and just in case too, being in a seated, more comfortable position while you're experiencing torments unspeakable is yet another form of torment, by the way. I'm seated and I can't go anywhere. So there's one in front of me, one to my left, one to my right. The 2 on my right and left, they grab my wrists and they jerk my hands up in the air. In hell, you cannot fight back. You have no strength whatsoever. Imagine not sleeping for an entire month. For 1 month, not even 1 second of sleep. And for that month, no food. And for that month, no water. That's how I felt in hell. They jerked my hands up and I could do nothing. And then the one in the middle, suddenly it had a wooden plank in its hands. And it slammed the plank down on my lap. And then when I looked back up to it, it suddenly had a nail in one hand, or nails in one hand, and a hammer in the other. And I instantly knew this was pure mockery of Jesus. The 2 forced my hands down on the plank, and the one in the middle, it puts a nail on my finger, and it begins driving the hammer like this, just smacking it. And the first hit of the nail went right through my finger. The second hit pretty much cracked it, and my finger went off to the side. And then the third hit bent the nail over. And then from there, it didn't care if it was hitting nails or smashing my fingers. And it was just going back and forth. And its head was back like this, and it was cackling like this wild, insane cackling noise, just hitting like this. And suddenly I could feel the pain again. And I began screaming again. It felt like lightning bolts were going up and down my arms. And I have no idea. You're so desperate. You're so desperate. I remembered I looked to the demon at my left, and I was about to beg it for mercy, even though I knew it was a complete waste. But it was all I could do is just beg it for some kind of mercy. And when I saw it, I suddenly saw it in its full manifestation. It was no longer a black shadow. And it was absolutely horrible. It was just the most horrible entity I've ever seen. The best I could is because I'm an artist, right? I write music, I draw. If it's artsy, I do it. I've had people like, could you draw it? I'm like, I could, but I don't want to. I don't want to entertain them at all. But it looked like part man, part wolf, part bear, and part pig or hog. If you took all of those and mashed it into an entity, its skin was just rotting and disgusting yellow, and its teeth were just razor sharp. They were all crooked and nasty, but razor sharp. And then its eyes